Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So we started our recording and I'm just going to start, the intention of this meeting or this advising session is basically to provide you with a little bit of information about the Fulbright process. I did receive, for those of you who registered and sent in a registration form, I did receive some of those questions. So hopefully we will have a chance to address all of those. I thought it'd be good to just, I don't know how many of you were able to view the introductory session. So, and some of the questions that you asked actually touched on some things in that presentation. So I thought I would start by sharing a couple of those slides, and that'll give us a chance to introduce ourselves too. And then we'll open it up to your specific questions, because the intention is really to provide open advising for you and your questions to get you rolling on your application. So with that, I will share this. All right. So on this meeting today, we have myself. My name is Meg Gardenier, and I'm currently serving as a Fulbright program advisor at the Georgetown Center for Research and Fellowships, and interacting with students. It's been wonderful so far. Also, not joining me today is our director, Lauren Tuckley, and our deputy director, Bill. However, we are very fortunate to have with us Colleen Dougherty. So Colleen, could you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about you and your role at the center?
Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Dougherty. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an assistant director with the center. And so in addition to working on Fulbright, which all of us work on Fulbright, it is a full-time gig for all of us. I also advise on and manage the Laidlaw Undergraduate Leadership and Research Scholarship Program, which is a new program at the university, though all of you are interested in Fulbright. So Laidlaw is kind of out of your realm at this point because it's for first years and sophomores. That being said, if you know any first years or sophomores in coming to the university or at the university, let them know at the Laidlaw program. I also advise on Truman, the Truman Fellowships, and a few of the other fellowships within our portfolio. So happy to be here, happy to help answer any questions, and looking forward to meeting all of you.
That's great. Thank you so much. And it is a really busy office, and I appreciate Colleen's engagement today. And she's worked, especially, I believe, in the last couple of years with ETA. So if anybody's interested in the English teaching assistantship facet of Fulbright, she's also a go-to person. So that's awesome. Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time right now on like the overall program. There's a lot of information. Fulbright is basically the cornerstone program of the U.S. State Department in terms of mutual exchange and understanding. It's funded by the U.S. government and by national commissions in the country programs. And there are a lot of facets to it. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the program, but if you do have questions about the Fulbright U.S. student program, we can come back to those in the open session. But the general goal, and this is relevant for your application, is to foster a mutual understanding and advance knowledge development across communities, and to really facilitate cross-cultural exchange and intercultural experience. So it's a really wonderful program. I'm very excited about it. And there are a couple different avenues that you can take in terms of your application. We'll get into that. Again, I'm not going to get into here the funding and everything like that, because I want to get to the point that's relevant to some of your questions. I think many of you by this point may know, but eligibility, these are the eligibility criteria. You must be a US citizen to apply for Fulbright at the time of your application. So even if that's in the works right now, by the time of your application submission, you must have that citizenship. It's also another hard requirement is that you have completed your undergraduate degree. So anywhere between your completion of your undergraduate degree to the completion of your PhD is open for you to apply. And that is by the time of actually by the time you fulfill your grant. So if you're a senior this year, and you're planning to graduate in 2023 and then go on Fulbright in fall 2023, that's perfect. So you have to complete your undergraduate by the time of your grant. At the time of your application, you could be a senior, a recent grad, a grad student, any of those. And there's no GPA requirement or cutoff with Fulbright, so it's not, you know, obviously they are looking for academic achievement and ability, but it's not determined by that number. I don't know, Colleen, did you want to add anything there?
The only thing I'll add is that, you know, around the sort of academic achievement, that sort of thing, one of the things that the Fulbright committees are looking for is essentially your ability to undertake whatever it is that you are applying for, right? So like if you're applying for an ETA award, you know, that you have the skills, the background, the ability to undertake that work as an English teaching assistant abroad in that country. If you're applying for a study award, so to undertake a graduate degree in another country, that you have the academic ability to succeed in that academic program. Or if you're applying for a research award, that you have the academic ability and the background required to undertake and fulfill that research that you're proposing. So that's kind of like when we talk about academic achievement, like that's really what we're talking about. And you know, Fulbright and IIE understand that GPA, a number, doesn't necessarily always reflect those abilities. And so that's like really where it comes down to the work that you're putting into your application and your affiliation letters and everything else, which we'll talk about, if not today, at some point, as you kind of go through the Fulbright process.
Yeah, thank you. And another point on this page is also just that there are, in addition to these eligibility requirements, there are sometimes country-specific requirements, and we can get into those, particularly for the master's program, or some countries are looking for only master's students. So that would be something to look at if you are just graduating in your BA or your undergraduate degree, and their really preference is for master's or doctoral students. That's an indicator for you in terms of your competitiveness for that grant. So you do want to look at those kind of country-specific criteria on the country page. This is a little bit about the numbers. I'm going to keep going here, but this is really important. There are 3 different types of awards, and I think there are people on this call that may be interested in all of them. I have some of your statistics here. So it's like a few, 16% of the people who responded were interested in ETA. A lot of folks are interested in graduate study because you can pursue like a 1-year master's program, and in some cases actually a doctoral program through Fulbright. But in general, it's a 1-year grant. So you're really looking for like a 1-year program if you're looking to complete a master's degree or graduate study. There's also the opportunity to apply for an independent research grant, which is not a degree per se, but it's a proposal that you would make, and we can get into that. That would often is graduate level, but it's not necessarily. You can have your undergraduate degree and still apply for the independent study. As Colleen's mentioned, though, you have to indicate and show your preparation in terms of carrying out and the feasibility and the, you know, likelihood that you'll be able to complete your proposed research if you do an independent study award. So those are the types of award. There's slightly more of the ETA opportunities, and in some countries you'll see there's, you know, over 100 ETA. In other countries there's 2, you know, in some countries there's none. So it really does vary country by country. And then the study versus the grant. In some countries you will see there are like named relationships with master's programs, like in Israel, in the UK, in Spain, there are a few programs in Italy. So that, again, you're looking country by country to see what kinds of awards are available in each country. Okay, we will get into this a little bit. I wanted to go, one of the questions that somebody posed was kind of what is Fulbright looking for? And I do have a slide on that here. Well, let's touch on this one for a second. So graduate degree enrollment through Fulbright, this is just a little bit of information on that, because that's, it does vary country by country, but in general, this is a unique process, because if you're applying to complete a graduate degree or a master's degree, you need to apply to your master's program separately from Fulbright. So you actually have two application processes. You're applying for your Fulbright and you're applying for that master's degree. And if you get the Fulbright but are not accepted to your master's degree program, then in a lot of cases, you will not be able to fulfill the Fulbright grant opportunity, because you're not able to enroll in the master's program. So this is an important thing to consider, in the application process. And also in terms of the letter of affiliation, a lot of the country specific criteria indicate that you actually, for the degree enrollment, it's good to have a letter a letter of support that indicates your your inclination to apply, but you will not most likely have an acceptance letter to that master's program until later in the Fulbright process. Did you want to add anything on that, Colleen?
Yeah, just really quick. So with that, like, I know last year we had a few students were kind of confused about that timeline. So with Fulbright, like, as you all know, the Fulbright deadline is in October. Most of the grad programs, their deadline is also sort of around that same time. So you won't have that letter of affiliation until probably December at the earliest when it comes to the application to your graduate program. And so what will often happen in that situation is when you receive that letter of acceptance, or if you receive that letter of acceptance from the university, you'd essentially contact your Fulbright contact through the embassy or through IIE, and essentially submit that letter later on in the process, so that they do, like, there is a process for you to send that to them after you've submitted your letters. That being said, I do want to reiterate Meg's point of trying to get a letter of support from that institution as a letter of affiliation ahead of time, because that will absolutely strengthen your application.
Yeah. And for independent research, you absolutely need that letter of affiliation as kind of your host institution that is supportive of your research project. And we can definitely talk more, because that is a critical component of the application process. All right, I'm almost done with these slides, and then we'll open it up to, so application components, just a brief review. You have two main essays, and the first is statement of grant purpose. The second is the personal statement. We actually recommend that you start working on that statement of grant purpose first, because these materials are kind of complementary of each other. And what's really important is that you can make a very strong and compelling proposal for your research project, or in some cases your master's degree program. Oh, I think I froze. And then, why that country, why Fulbright, etc. Let's see. Okay. So for the degree program and for the independent study, you have, can you still hear me, Colleen? The sound is okay, just my image is frozen, I guess.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So for the independent study and for the master's program, you have a 2-page statement of grant purpose. And for the English teaching assistantship, it's a 1-page statement of grant purpose. Other than that, most of the components are the same. And we can talk more about the foreign language evaluation if that's a question, your reference letters, etc. And Colleen did also mention that the national deadline is in October, but at Georgetown, we have a hard deadline of September 1st, because we also have a campus process of review that really strengthens your application prior to the national deadline, prior to submitting your materials for the national deadline. Okay, this was the slide I was looking for. So in terms of factors in selection, so Fulbright looks at the quality and feasibility of the proposal, the academic professional record, which we touched on before, your personal qualifications, which are going to highlight in primarily your personal statement, but also where it pertains to your ability to carry out your research project. You can mention that in the statement of grant purpose as well. Language preparation, other factors here, requirements of the program, again, as we said, that are country specific, desirability of achieving diversity. So Fulbright is really looking to have a program that is representative of the diversity of the American population, of the US population. And so this cuts across all different kind of dimensions, including academic dimensions, linguistic and cultural dimensions, religious dimensions, gender, etc. Okay, I think that's really all I wanted to highlight from the presentation. I'll just touch here briefly in terms of the timeline, and then I will open it up to some of your questions. So in terms of the timeline, we're now in May. The best course of action is to get this kind of collective and individualized advising on Fulbright. Also to enroll in the Canvas course. We do have a lot of information, and we have previous information sessions there that you can review. So enrolling in the Canvas course, it's not like an academic course. You don't have assignments and things like that. It's really just for your own information to complete that course. You can find a lot of information up there. And stay in touch with us through the Fulbright listserv. So that we can provide support and guidance and advising on all of the components of the application materials. Once you have selected your country and program of choice, then I would recommend initiating your Fulbright application online, and we can talk about that, but that could be done right now. May or June is an ideal time to do that so that you have the summer months to work on your application materials and your statements. And then the internal deadline, as I mentioned, for Georgetown is September 1st. At that point, your application materials, which should be complete, all of the materials will go out for internal review, and you'll get feedback on your application before the national submission deadline, which is in October. Okay. All right. I am going to stop sharing, and yeah, so what I'd like to do now is actually, let me see if I can still share I don't know what happened with, okay, now I'm back. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is kind of open it up to your questions. If you can just say a little bit about where you are in the process. If you've initiated, I saw like 25% of you have actually started your application, bravo. But I'd like to get some more of you there feeling confident about beginning your application and addressing some of your questions and concerns. So we are here to help you get to that point, and we're open to your questions. Who would like to jump in with a question? You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself, or yeah, okay, Aditi?
Yes. Hi.
Yeah. Hi.
So I'm really early on in this process. I'm an MSFS student, actually. So a couple years ago, when I started thinking about this scholarship, I really wanted to go to Ukraine. Obviously, given the current situation happening there, I've been kind of looking into how Fulbright is handling that. So it looks like they're still accepting applicants, but I'm not sure if it's advisable to apply, or if the situation does change, if Fulbright will make allowances or reallocate you to another country. I was wondering if you just knew a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is a great question. And I mean, I think that's exactly what they say on the website, that they are accepting applications. This year, we actually had someone who had applied for this cycle, and they've reposted him to another neighboring country, I believe, because they're not going to run the program this year. I think it is possible that by next year they may reestablish the Fulbright outreach, but I think, if I were advising you, I would probably try to look at Plan B very closely, because even if the hostilities are curtailed in the next few months, I'm not sure that there's still going to be normalized relations for either Russia or Ukraine to run the Fulbright program. but again, if that is really where you want to go, Ukraine, they are accepting applications. And so if your application is successful and they're not going to run the program, it's possible that they could then offer you a second, a different grant in a neighboring country. I don't know.
That reallocation isn't guaranteed though, right?
Right.
No,
Definitely
it's
not.
not. Yeah.
Thank you.
The only thing I'll add to that is that the student that we had this year had applied
Mhm.
as an ETA applicant. And so ETAs tend to be more easily reassigned
Right.
to similar countries or other countries in the region. So like he was reassigned to Poland, I believe.
Mhm.
And so depending on your grant type that you're interested in,
Mhm.
reassignment might be easier than others versus like say an open study or research award where you're applying for maybe a specific university in Ukraine. That is probably going to be a little bit more difficult for reassignment, which is why they kind of give that blanket statement. Yeah, that's so.
Did you have a sense of which one you were going to apply to, the ETA or the research?
I have my TFL, so I was thinking ETA.
ETA.
But yeah,
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
not sure.
Mhm. So yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a little bit risky because I'm not sure they're going to run the program, but they are, it is online, and they do say that they have 6 ETA positions available, and it really may be able to be run at that point. So it's really up to you whether or not you would want to take that chance, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will post also my individual, my sign up for individual advising too. If there's something that's like really bugging you and you want to hash all the details through, we can definitely do that on an individualized basis too over the next couple of weeks. I'm really happy to do that. Let's see, what other questions do folks have? Are you bringing to the meeting right now? Who wants to go next here? I see Daniel, Jill. Yeah, go ahead, Carolina. And then Kiera. Go ahead, Carolina.
Hi, so I have been considering the English teaching assistantship award. I'm an SSP. I was looking at Spain, primarily just because I focus a lot on national security, escalation, defense, and I know that I would want to maybe do some work in Europe. And I also have more familiarity with the Spanish language versus, French or German. But I do notice that they want an intermediate speaking level. And I'm just wondering, I guess, if I do the language evaluation and I get something less than the intermediate level, if it would still be possible for me to apply there, or if I should shift a focus to a different country in Europe.
Okay, that's great. And you wanted to do an ETA, you said, or a research?
So it would be an ETA.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Spain is a really special case. They do offer 170 ETA awards, so there's quite a few. But if you look at the statistics, there's also hundreds of applicants for those slots. So depending on the year, it could be like 1 in 4 selected, 1 in 5, even 1 in 6 selected for those ETA slots in Spain. And depending on where they place you, you are teaching in English. So it could depend where they place you in terms of the level of schooling and the location. But I would take it as a general rule, if they're asking for an intermediate level and that requires 2 years of college level Spanish, I would say that is a pretty hard requirement because the competition is so stiff for that country. And it's also true in Latin America. A lot of the Spanish in particular, I think, in terms of the language, they have enough applicants at that high level that it does become very competitive to have the established level. That being said, when you submit your application, if you're just meeting that intermediate level, you can also indicate your willingness to continue intensive language study, both prior to the grant year and during the grant year. So that shows the Fulbright Commission that you are continuing to improve and develop your language skills in that area. I see Colleen's shaking your head. Did you want to add there? Yeah.
Oh no, I completely agree with all of that. And
Mhm.
to comment a little bit more on the continuation of those studies, especially with Spanish, with a Spanish language requirement, like we would suggest as you're sort of, when you indicate, right, that willingness to continue learning both before your Fulbright and while you're there, identifying within your application like how you're doing that and ensuring that it is a type of preparation program that shows your like the seriousness of your willingness to learn, right? Like Duolingo versus, you know, taking like courses at maybe a community college or at a university or something like that, like in a sort of non-credit bearing situation, or some other sort of formalized language study versus on your own with an app. Duolingo is great, but for something like this, like in an instance like this, you know, showing that more formalized study shows your commitment to meeting that language requirement or surpassing it prior to going on your Fulbright.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are other aspects of your application too, obviously, that they're considering. Like, I think in Spain, you have the opportunity to do supplemental projects, so you can indicate, you know, that, and that's going to be a factor. The strength of your teaching abilities could be a big factor. If you have like extensive teaching experience, that could, you know, be a counterbalance with like a lower level of Spanish. But as a rule, I think Spanish is probably the most competitive language in Fulbright because there are so many countries and so many applicants that have that advanced level. So I would be a little wary, and I totally underscore what Colleen is saying, that to indicate a serious commitment to language development would be important on your application. Let's go to Kiera.
Yeah, so I'm a junior in the SFS studying culture and politics, and I've kind of directed my study at medical anthropology, and specifically how like tradition affects and medical practice affects things like maternal mortality and just kind of general quality of life. So I was hoping to do a research grant focused on something like this. But obviously I'll be graduating without, you know, kind of a strict natural science degree. So I was wondering how you generally would advise people on kind of framing their application to focus, because I think I would focus more on kind of like people's anecdotal accounts and epidemiological data and things like that. So how might you kind of recommend framing that without the hard science background, or is that something that you would just recommend kind of talking to the different affiliations that I might be interested in and seeing what might make sense there?
And where is there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm not totally sure on a specific country, but I think West Africa or Southern Africa would make the most sense in, you know, somewhere like Zambia or maybe Senegal, or I'm still kind of narrowing it down, based on what might make sense to look at.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think for your research question, the absence of like a hard science background is probably not a problem, as long as your research proposal reflects both your preparation and a sound kind of methodological approach. So, you know, you can draw on different methodologies. It could be like a mixed methods where you're combining, you know, focus groups or interviews with also looking at, you know, epidemiological data or records over time. It's really open and up to you. And I would say that your point about choosing a strong affiliation is very important in country, especially in the African context. That affiliation may make or break your applications, the strength of your application, because you're really going to need in-country support and, you know, affiliation to help open those doors. So I would look very closely at the country pages for the countries that you're considering, because they may have different criteria for the kinds of projects that they fund, and also what they're looking for. I also, you can look at previous grants to the countries that interest you, and I can show you how to do like a previous grant search based on the country, because I have seen grants, research grants of this nature, either looking at, maternal mortality or health factors and things like that. So it is something that Fulbright has funded in the past, and you could build on the strength of that to frame a little bit, look at some of that research to frame your application. But it will come down to like really having a strong rationale for the country that you select, and a strong affiliation in that country. Did you want to add, Colleen, on that?
No, I think that hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, in terms of selecting a country, there should also be some kind of interest level. I mean, one of the questions that the application should always implicitly address is why Zambia, why South Africa, so like you have to provide a rationale for why you need the Fulbright to do this study, and why you've selected this country as the site for which to explore these questions about maternal health or maternal mortality. So you have to build in these rationales that connect both with the mission of Fulbright and with the country context that you've selected, and tie them back to your experience. Maybe you were like an African studies major, that was a minor for you, or you did an internship. A lot of times when I'm advising students, I'll look at the CV or the resume and see if there are aspects of that resume that could resonate and be kind of highlighted in the application to show that you have the preparation, the motivation to successfully carry out the proposed research study.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We have some more time and some more questions. Let's see. People are posting in the chat. Let's see. Again, I will either send out on the form, or I'll put it in the chat in a little bit, an individual advising form. If you find that you want to follow up one-on-one, I'm available in the next few weeks to do that. Here we have a comment from Jill. Let's see. Okay. Specifics of I'm trying to see the question here. Okay. You didn't want to unmute. Jill, you're at work. Okay. Yes. Okay. So each country also has information about like something they call residency. So if you've been in a country for, often it could be as little as 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year. And really for this, they're looking in the year preceding the grant year. So it's not like if you had an experience, not if you did study abroad for 6 months somewhere, or if you had an experience as a child in that country or something, or maybe did a consultancy there. It's more if you were a resident there for more than 3 to 4 to 5 months or more, depending on the country, that they really kind of discourage then tagging a Fulbright grant on that. They want to provide opportunities for folks who have not had that opportunity to have extensive in-country experience. Countries in the Middle East that require the Arabic language or French language, they really vary in terms of the language requirement. So that would be something for if you were looking to return to Jordan. You'd have to look at the country requirement. And also I would look at the statistics to see kind of how many people are applying for these programs, and kind of factor out your eligibility factors with the competitiveness. And that's something that I can also work through individually. I'm trying to see, yeah. So you're saying spending 2 months in the country over the summer. I don't think that would be a problem, especially if it were a language development program and it showed evidence that you actually improved your Arabic skills. So I don't think that would be a disincentive for your application or a problem if you were going to apply to Jordan again. Does that answer your question, Jill? Okay. Yeah.
Can I
All
add
right.
one quick thing
Yes,
that is
please,
semi-related?
Mhm.
So, in addition to the residency piece, there are also a few countries that will not allow dual citizens to apply to that country. South Korea is a great example of this. If you at any point have had, and especially South Korea is a really great example actually because of the way that citizenship works with South Korea. If you have ever had Korean citizenship or currently have Korean citizenship, you cannot apply to that program. And I say that because we had a student who, the way that South Korean citizenship works, and this is from my limited understanding from this situation that we had with a previous student, is that if you are born to Korean citizens, even if you were not born in the country, you automatically get Korean citizenship. And so this is my long way of saying, double check the citizenship status or eligibility requirements if you are a dual citizen of any other country. Some places, some countries, it's fine and dual citizens can apply, and others have very, very strict citizenship requirements when applying to that country. The eligibility or the residency and citizenship requirements or eligibility pieces are going to be underneath the eligibility section of that country's page and of the grant page. So for Jordan, residency is considered after 6 months. So Jill, you're fine if you're only there for 2 months, but after 6 months, if you were in the country for 6 months, that's what they would consider residency. But yeah, if you're a dual citizen or hold citizenship of another country and you're considering applying to that country, double check the citizenship requirements because you don't want to get super far in the process and then it turns out that we're not eligible on a technicality.
Yeah. So yeah, there are these kind of read the fine print kind of thing. Now I did have somebody asking in the registration form about graduate degree programs, and this does take a little bit of extra research because there's 2 ways to do it. One would be you can do a search on the IIE website for programs that offer degree programs, and these are universities basically that partner with Fulbright to provide some kind of support for a graduate program. And you, again, need to really read the fine print because not every single one Fulbright does not provide tuition support for some of those graduate programs. I believe in Spain, they may not provide tuition support, but sometimes for those graduate programs where Fulbright doesn't provide tuition support, the program itself waives tuition fees if you have the Fulbright. So there are a lot of little hoops related to graduate study, but there are programs in Finland, there are programs listed in France, in Australia, some interesting programs. If you are a doctoral student or a medical student, they're also going to be updating their page on the Fulbright Fogarty program. They haven't updated that quite yet. And again, eligibility is only for doctoral students or medical students. So that's a very unique program in public health. So that's of interest. Israel also has a plethora of master's degree programs, and we've had Georgetown students be accepted to those. Italy, Netherlands. Now the UK programs, and before I say UK, Taiwan also has a number of interesting master's degree programs, and I believe there is no, they're all taught in English. There's no language requirement, but they do note on their country page that a lot of Fulbright scholar students, when they're there, they do take Mandarin while they're in Taiwan. So that's another indication that you can make in terms of the cross-cultural relationship, that you would be interested or willing to take Mandarin classes while pursuing your master's degree in Taiwan. For the UK programs, these are really unique and specific. There's like one degree, one program per one Fulbright award per program for maybe 15 different programs, and they're extremely, extremely competitive. But if you find that you are an excellent fit and it's like your dream program and it's a one, then start now to establish a link with those programs, reach out to their program managers or their faculty and try to, build that connection, even get a letter of support saying that you will be applying to this and are interested in getting a Fulbright to pursue your master's degree at that university. So that's a lot of work on your end if you're going to do that, but it could be very worthwhile. Again, when you're applying to complete a master's degree, usually this is 1 year of funding through Fulbright. You need to apply both for the Fulbright as well as to the master's degree program itself. So you have to find out all the, eligibility and admissions requirements for those master's programs that interest you. And again, you can only apply for one. So it is a little bit of work to do right now to identify the correct program for you. Anything to add on that? And then let's take a couple more questions before we wrap up. I see a few more names. Did other folks have questions that you'd like us to address while we're here? Vincent or Denise? Oh yeah, Carolina.
Pretty good this time.
You're good? Okay. All right. Thank you. Carolina, you had a follow-up question? Yeah.
Yeah, so I had seen online on the Fulbright website that for people who do the English teaching assistantship, there is the opportunity to pursue research on the side with the hours that you are not involved with the school.
Yeah.
I had seen this as kind of an added benefit for me to get more acquainted with the culture if I am able to interact with students, admittedly probably take Spanish lessons also while I'm there, and kind of do my own research on just interconnections between security and culture that I'm kind of focused on now while I'm in my master's degree at Georgetown. I'm wondering if that is something that I should add within my application for the English Teaching Assistantship Award, or if even this award might not be the best fit for me because I, maybe have a specific research topic in mind. I thought that perhaps both would be an added benefit when applying to this award, especially for being able to gain more insight into the perspectives of Spanish people if I'm interacting with them on a daily basis in a job. But unsure of your opinions on that, if perhaps maybe I should be going for a different kind of award.
Colleen, do you want to respond first to that one?
Sure. So Spain in particular is unique in that they list on the webpage the options for ETA applicants, right? There are some other countries that all of the ETA applicants are working within one subset of education, whether it's elementary, secondary school, higher education, or some other educational or institutional English teaching program. Spain is unique in that there are multiple ETA options throughout the country to teach at various levels, and the requirements for each one are distinct. So there are some, right, based on the level that you're teaching at and the expectations of the schools or institutions that you would be assigned to. So you would need to look through those options that you would apply to see if that would be feasible on the side, given your responsibilities as part of the program. The other thing, and also the other thing to also consider is what are the responsibilities of an ETA in that particular program, aside from just the English teaching. For many ETA programs, there is a project of some sort that you are expected to do with the students that you're working with to help them to develop their English language skills. And again, the expectations of that project or program that you are implementing vary from country to country. So if you are interested in going to Spain to do research, you know, and that is kind of your end goal, then, you know, a research award would honestly be a better fit for you versus doing an ETA and then trying to do some research on the side. Like if your goal for this is to do research, there is the research award. That being said, with the language skill requirements, they're going to look at that a lot more heavily. And that will be a more important factor for, well, I don't want to say more important because it is still going to be important regardless of which award you apply to, but they will weight it a little bit differently if you're applying for a study or research award than if you're applying for an ETA. It will still be important in the ETA because you're teaching English to native Spanish speakers, but it will be weighted a little bit differently because you'd be doing research in a majority Spanish speaking country. And so from that perspective, you know, I know you asked earlier about like, okay, would a different country be a better fit? From that perspective, Spain might not be the best fit for you, and maybe a research award in a different country that has a lower language requirement or not as strict of a language requirement or a different language requirement.
Yeah.
Maggie, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the onus is on the applicant to show a couple different things in the application. And for ETA, first and foremost, your priority is teaching. And so they want to know that you're strong, you're committed, you're going to bring a lot of energy and strength to the teaching. So in that sense, I don't think that having a side research project, even if it's in the name of like intercultural understanding, necessarily helps your application for ETA. It doesn't, I wouldn't say it hurts, but it doesn't necessarily strengthen or help your application for ETA. And it could potentially, if they see like a competing agenda, oh yeah, I want to teach, but I also want to do research and I'm a researcher, you know, that could be a source of, not so sure, because the Spanish grant, the ETA program is so competitive. Now, if you did instead do like an independent research project, and keep in mind that with Fulbright, there's, you know, yes, they want to know, it's an interesting question in terms of research and the feasibility they want to know, but you're not in a degree program. So it's really, you know, research in the name of learning. It's not as much, you know, you have a big project that you then have to publish, or the bar for, you know, it's not a capstone that you have to like produce something huge out of this research project. It's a research project that is interesting and feasible and relevant, that advances your career, but also the goals of Fulbright, which is kind of cross-cultural understanding and you serving as a cultural ambassador. So research has a big frame for Fulbright. And so it's not the same, especially for doctoral students who like are working on their dissertation, you know, or for, you know, master's students who are completing a capstone. You know, Fulbright doesn't have that same expectation of a degree program, but it is about learning, and it is about feasibility, and it is about relevance. So if research is your priority, there's always opportunities for you to do teaching on the side, or other kinds of service or engagement projects. So I kind of agree with Colleen here that maybe the research approach is more a focus and builds more on your academic background, so you might be a stronger candidate for that. But again, I was trying to put my link here for my individual advising, because Caroline, it seems like this is something we should definitely you know, talk about you know, one-on-one advising, and we can like kind of think through the different options and look at the numbers and things like that I like to do in individual advising, and really talk through what works. So this is the link to just complete a Google form. Let me know a little bit about your where you are in the process, your interest. Please submit your resume so I can see the kinds of relevant experience you have. And then I will send you a calendar invite for a meeting within the next week or two, where we can do a one-on-one advising session. So I'm very happy to do that with anyone on this call or anyone who sees the recording. That's my job, and I'm happy to meet with you to provide that support. All right, we got just a couple more minutes. Any burning last questions or sense of advice? Daniel, did you want to chime in at all, or others that haven't had a chance to speak up yet before we close?
Yeah, well, I'll just say real quick that, I'm a graduating second year Asian studies student, master's, and kind of my interest lies not in Asia though, it's more in the Eastern Mediterranean, and actually as kind of a comparative regional interest that kind of began last semester, but which I've written my master's thesis on this semester, and which I've kind of done a lot of reading and research into since then. So in terms of like what I'd like to do for Fulbright as kind of a tentative thing that I'm considering now is to focus on like Cyprus. And also I've looked into Fulbright in Cyprus, they have it, and I've seen that, they want Cyprus is kind of like a divided country, so they'd really want to have people to focus both on the Turkish side and the Greek side. So there's those two kind of language requirements that they would have. So there's sort of a challenge there. But then I guess also making the case for why I, with my particular background, would be good for this is something I'm thinking through.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah. And, Cyprus, if we were having a one-on-one advising, I'll look at the top choice, and then I'll also suggest maybe some other things to consider. And so, for you, I might think about like looking in the region. There are really interesting projects, Turkey, Greece, Albania, even, and the southern part of Albania. That's where I went in my Fulbright. Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria. There's an interesting kind of, some of those countries have like a binational program, like Greece and Bulgaria, I believe, do. They're one of the few that you can look at two countries. But Cyprus could be fascinating. I don't know the numbers, so maybe this is another area where we could have an individual advising and talk through how to kind of translate your knowledge and expertise of the kind of Asian region, but also transitioning to this kind of Mediterranean region. Kind of sounds really interesting. And then also obviously looking at the language requirements and what languages you bring to the table. And were you thinking of a research project or an ETA?
It'd probably be more of a research project.
Yeah, sounds fascinating. And some of those countries are actually undersubscribed. So, Turkey is doing a big push to try and bring people. Tunisia, I heard them in the Middle Eastern sessions promoting the Tunisia program because it's undersubscribed. Morocco and Jordan tend to be oversubscribed. So, looking at those other countries in the region, and, Albania, Bulgaria, maybe Romania are kind of undersubscribed. So those things, they're really looking for strong applicants, and you can really maximize your competitiveness and your chances if you also take into account some of the countries that are less popular destinations, and become an even more competitive candidate for those.
Okay, that's very heartening. I'll definitely do the forum, and I'm looking forward to talking to you individually.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about your interests. Sure.
Oh, absolutely. I can dump all my knowledge about Eastern Mediterranean on. Doing a thesis on it, it's something you just talk about.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody showing up today. This has been a really interesting conversation, and our office is always open. You can even come by in person if you want to the Center for Research and Fellowships. We have binders of previous applications that you can look at to see what constituted a successful application. So that's sometimes helpful. And I personally will be setting up individual advising meetings over the next couple weeks by Zoom if you're traveling. So that's fine. This is really a good time to figure out where you'd like to go and to initiate your application online, because that gives you the entire summer to collect the affiliation letter, the letters of recommendation, and to start working through the nuances of your statement of grant purpose and your personal statement, and to get all your application materials together in a timely manner so that you're ready for that September 1st internal deadline and have a really strong application. So with that, I will wrap up. And Colleen, did you want to have any closing words or any words of encouragement or advice for these budding young Fulbrighters?
The only thing I'll add is that, like, I want to reiterate Meg's point from earlier in the presentation, or like earlier in the meeting, of checking out our Canvas course site. The Canvas course site is super, super helpful with like all of the very basic pieces of information of like what to look for, how to what to think about when it comes to your applications, how like resources on reaching out to institutions if you're doing a study or research award, like resources on reaching out to those institutions for affiliation letters, because they can feel really awkward to just sort of like cold call, cold email these universities in other countries that you've like never had interactions with before. And so those resources on the Canvas course site are super, super important. And once you've kind of looked at all of that, you'll have a much better basis for your advising appointment with Meg or any of the other staff members, whether it's myself, Meg, Bill, Lauren, down the line, because you'll have all of the basic information, and we can, during that advising session, have a more specific conversation about your interests, the different countries that you're thinking about and why, and all of that. So please definitely look at the Canvas course site ahead of any advising sessions, because it will really help you kind of get over the basics. So when you're talking with us, we can really get down to like the specifics of your interest.
Yeah, it's a great resource, as is the IIE website, and we can walk you through there to look at the different components, the statistics, the search engines that they have, as well as webinars related to your region and application of choice. So I try to put those out on the Fulbright Friday newsletter and also on the listserv. So we have a lot of resources. Georgetown is amazingly it's a great community around Fulbright. We've been one of the top producers for many, many years because of this level of support. So there are a lot of resources to help you be successful in the process. So absolutely, Canvas site, listserv. I just put the email fulbright@georgetown.edu if you're not on listserv. I think you are, but also there's a link there to self-enroll in the Canvas course. And I check that email. So if you want to reach me, you can reach me there too. And I think that's it. Good luck with, if you're still wrapping up your finals, good luck with that, and have a wonderful summer. And please be in touch and come by our office. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Take care. Thank you. I'm going to